Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Or am I welcoming myself back? I'm just going to do some tech checks here real quick. It's been a while since I've been live, making sure that I'm actually streaming to you. Looks like I am. So one sec, you're going to hear me echo for a minute, just while I make sure that the sound's actually working. Okay, I am. All right, that was pretty good. Welcome back to a little Friday Social Live. Very spontaneous, I know, but I have been on a bit of a break. What I want to talk to you about today, and I'll tell you about what I've been up to for a minute here, is this Mercury Retrograde we've been in for the past 3 weeks. You may not know this, but we've been in you probably do know this by now. It's been going crazy for everybody, this Mercury Retrograde. So we've been in a Mercury Retrograde since the 30th of January in Aquarius. And just so you all know, like, I actually do cover these things. They're just all covered inside of my Your Intuitive Edge premium membership now. So that's why you're not hearing me talk about them, here like I normally might have before. But hey, Tammy. Hey, Carolyn Willman. I see a lot of people. Amber. All right. Susie Fleming. Aloha, Trisha. Well, welcome. Thanks for hanging out with me on a Friday night. Why not, right? I've got my tea because you know what? I am half full. That's right. That's right. So yeah, let's kick it for a little while and just kind of catch up, and I'll talk a little bit about some insights I want to share with you about this Mercury Retrograde. But anyway, yeah, I've been kicking these cycles inside of my membership and going into lots of depth and stuff. I just finished going over all of 2021 in terms of the cycles we're in, including this Mercury Retrograde. So I'm going to offer a couple insights from my membership to you from there, and also just talk about how to deal with the integration phase that's coming up, that's ahead, and how to best really engage that with consciousness and with intention, and to kind of absorb and integrate whatever Mercury Retrograde message that's been trying to get through to you and through to your life. So I'm going to cover some of that in a minute here. But let me just settle in, say hi to all of you. I want to make sure everything's going well. Hey, Sherry. Hey, Sue. Everybody. I got YouTube and Facebook right now. I'm live on both. And I'm just checking out my software because, check this out. Just some news here, kind of what I've been up to. So I always take, I think most of you have been following me for a while, I take usually January as a month completely off every year. I work so hard, and certainly through the holidays. I usually work through the holidays. So January for me is my month to just stop, take inventory of my next movement in my work, where I want to go, what I want to do with you, where I want to take you as a teacher. And that's what I've been doing. So I wanted to share with you a little bit about what's ahead, because it's going to be very fun, and a kind of consistent engagement with me here on these lives. I am developing a podcast right now, Your Intuitive Edge podcast. And I'm going to do something very cool with this. So not only am I going to record a podcast, that you can pick up on iTunes and Spotify and anywhere that you get your podcasts, including my website, I'm also going to live stream the production. So you and I are going to be hanging out Tuesdays and Fridays coming up here in March. And I'm going to be banging out podcasts for season 1 on Your Intuitive Edge. And we're going to hang out here, and, you'll be able to watch me do the live stream. And then once all the podcasts are, post-produced, you can go to, your favorite podcast place and get them. But it's going to be fun. I'm super excited. I'm going to basically start at 101. I'm going back to the basics this year. And I'm going to be guiding all of you through the basics around your intuitive system and how to work with it in a real, robust, and powerful way. So stay tuned. More information on that coming. If you're not on my newsletter, get on it. If you want to stay in the know and know exactly when I'm going to be going live with stuff, that's where I'll be announcing that primarily. I will announce it on Facebook, but Facebook's algorithms now don't so much get the news out anymore. So if you really want to keep up with when those are going to air and you want to just watch them live, either on YouTube or Facebook, just make sure you're on my newsletter. So that's something I've been, in development with. And it looks like right now we're going to start recording and producing those in March. So excited about it, everybody. So excited. And I see a wonderful, just badass future for this podcast. So I'm super excited about that. So I wanted to tell you that's something I've been up to. And yeah, I've been teaching inside my membership since I last saw you. Full on. I've got 2 master classes I'm doing. I've got Empathic Soul Love Rebel 2.0 that I'm teaching. I've got also You Can Do Magic that's going on inside of my my master classes off my website, and I've been doing my membership. So I've been busy. It's not like I've been just hanging out, not doing anything. I've actually been doing quite a bit of stuff. But I thought it'd be cool just today to, once again, for me to get back in the flow of doing a live and getting all the tech stuff checked out. Hey, Tiffany. Hey, Fatima. Nice to see you all. Gil, wonderful. And we've got Sherry Conklin. Yeah, the Cosmos Inside. I love the name. And you're on YouTube, it looks like. Anyway, so I wanted to hang out with you guys. Just a little bit of kickback, share some insights, take some cues. I did see some cues on the on my post earlier. I posted this up a few hours ago. Unfortunately, I just realized that those cues don't actually populate inside of my software until I'm live. So I tried to write down a few of those, and just I'm going to generally speak to some of those questions you guys posted earlier. I apologize, as once again me learning the software and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, let's talk about what's going on. Mercury goes direct tomorrow. So the past 3 weeks we've been in a Mercury retrograde, and I don't want to spend too much time explaining what those are. If you've been following my work for a while, you know I approach astrology from a very different lens, and it's very archetypal, holographic, and intuitive. And so this one has been in Aquarius, and true to, I think the energetics of a retrograde, which are chaotic, which are designed to take a part of your life or a facet of your psyche or psychology and kind of disintegrate it, throw it into a state of chaos, so that not just to, screw you up, but so that you can actually break through to some new territory in yourself. We're in the sphere of the mind. This is Mercury. So this archetypal energetic cycle is about the breakdown, if you will, of the mind, its mental sets, its patterns, its perceptual limits, such that we can blast open into new territory, new ways to see things, new ways that are really necessary to see on behalf of what? What's the driver of any, astrological cycle? It's holism. It is on behalf of your capacity to live as an integral whole person. And that doesn't mean perfect. Do not equate holism with perfection. Perfection is illusion. But holism, in fact, means I accept that I'm not perfect. That's part of my holism, that I'm, a little effed up just like everybody. I call it flossom, right? So Mercury retrograde cycles are designed to really throw you in some area of your life. And that area is defined by the sign it's retrograding in. So this time it's Aquarius. So can we just take a minute with this? And this is my number one teaching about astrology. It is a tool of synchronicity. I'm actually doing a little mini class on synchronicity in my membership here coming up. So it's a tool of synchronicity. It is a tool that you can use via the psychic law of synchronicity. So if Mercury is going retrograde in Aquarius out there, it's also going retrograde in Aquarius in you. Has been. And that you can be you the person, right? But it can also be a state. It can be a country. It can be any entity that has a psyche, and everything has, in a sense, a psyche. So Mercury has been retrograde, that said, in the psyche of the world. Now, I want you to track some things that are Aquarian. One, electricity. Bells should start ringing already around the synchronicities of this retrograde. Aquarius is an archetype that is about our humanity. It's about our oneness at the group level of mind, the group level of thought, the group level of perception. It's about, in that sense, also equality. And it's about the archetypal movement that we're in now of waking up to one world consciousness. Now, I want to clarify something here for anyone that's not hearing that correctly. I did not say new world order. I said one world consciousness. And here's what's true. We've always been one world. The Aquarius archetype's about waking up to that truth. It's a truth that's already been here since this planet existed. We just weren't aware of it. And now, because of the internet, international travel, where we are in our awakening on this planet now, we are so aware, and yet also not at all, that we're one world. And there's this pressure, Aquarian pressure, that is very active now with Jupiter in Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius. We've had Mercury in Aquarius. Venus was just in Aquarius. Been a lot of Aquarian movement, activation, synchronistic energetics that are about us in our systems, our nervous systems, our psyches, our lives everywhere, our political structures, our literal energy grids, having to come to a new understanding of, hey, we can't act like we can go it alone anymore. We interbe. These are mystical laws. These are mystical truths. These are not just things that we can pick and choose per our wounded ego and tribalism. These are just fundamentals and the basics of life. And if we don't align to them, well, we're going to suffer. Not because we're being smited down by some angry, wrathful God, but because we're going against natural law, the natural nature of things, that we all interconnected. And we're in the growing pains of this awakening, and it's a meta pattern, folks. This is something that will endure well past our lifetimes. This is an Aquarian meta pattern in the language of astrology. Yes, indeed, this is about the transition from one age to a new age of Aquarius. And that's an age transition that will continue on well past our lifetimes. But we are emissaries of this age. We are in the midst of its growing pains and its challenges and its gifts. And as much as we could all look at something like social media being toxic or challenging right now, right? It's also a gift. I'm talking to you right now through it. There's a both and in, almost everything in life. So this retrograde, now this is where I want you to start you got to pull in what I say at the bigger level to your personal system and start to look at your own life and go, where have I been in the last, let's just go 6 weeks. Because there's 3 phases to a Mercury retrograde. There's the setup phase, there's the actual retrograde, and then there's the integration phase. And as of tomorrow, we start the integration phase. Now, where we've been since January 30th is this. We've been in a place where we have personally and collectively, in whatever way we have a soul contract for, been put into a blender of sorts, an Aquarian blender. And it's been about really having to come to a new awareness around some new emerging Aquarian force in us that cannot emerge in the current patterns we perceive through, choose through, act through, live through, etc. It can't, they're incompatible. They're dimensionally incompatible. And the one main thread that I pulled into my Mercury retrograde series inside of my membership was this. This is about spherical thinking. This is about learning how to think, see, perceive spherically in a 2D linear, either or, black, white, Democrat versus Republican world. To get spherical means that you start to see holographically. You go to this new way where, guess what else is in that sphere? Your shadow, right behind you. But like an owl, you turn your head around and you take in it all to the best you can. This is a fundamental of Aquarian perception. And in this retrograde, I would pull this thread to you and say, listen, where in your life did you get pressured, perhaps a stroke of fate thrown at you? And if you really get symbolic, because that's where the power is, that's where the pivots are. If you got symbolic, you'd go, this is about where I don't see my life spherically. I don't see karma spherically. I don't see cause and effect. I don't see how one part of my life is interconnected to another part of my life. And this is really key because we're in the box of your mind. So I want you to take something in right now, an insight. Anytime you hear someone say, well, think out of the box, I want you to pause that for a sec, because that's actually not accurate. You can never think out of the box because your mind is the box. What's more accurate to say is you can intuit out of the box. But your mind is in a set of perception. And this is what Mercury retrogrades always address each in their own way. It's in a set of perception that's already boxed. So to think in that box is to circulate in it in a way where you don't really get any new reference points of information or perception or solutions. It's all ready in a box. And there's nothing right or wrong about this. It's just how we are. To get out of a box, you don't think your way out of a box ever. Like, that is so not accurate. I can't even begin to, you know what I'm saying? Not accurate. What you do is you say, I'm in a box and my mind cannot get me out of this. I'm going to need some other skill, some other faculty, some other sense beyond my mind that can, shoot into this box, reorganize and refeng shui it, or recalibrate it. In some cases, revibrate it. But it's not going to come from the sphere of my mind. So this last Mercury retrograde, I want you to look at your life and start to consider, where was something trying to come in from outside your normal box? And say, listen, you are in a box. And the next potential of your life and opportunities of your life demand you get out. But, and this is the key, what are you willing to give up to get out? And what we tend to do, and it's tribally enforced, it's culturally enforced, is we want the new, but not on the terms of the new. We take the old and we then take those terms and say to the new, yeah, I want you, but on these terms. And can you see the conflict already? This is why it can take a dark night process to get to the new, because this is, politically encouraged, it's socially encouraged, it's tribally encouraged, culturally encouraged for us to say, I should be able to say I want the new, but on the terms of the old. In the Aquarian archetype, that doesn't fly. You have to be able to, and this is where the archetype of revolution comes in, and this is an Aquarian process, revolution. Is revolutions happen on the terms of the new as they throw out the terms of the old. So where in your life has there been, in the past 6 weeks, some kind of activation? And what I'm saying to you is resonating already. You're going, Ohado just nailed me. My Mercury retrograde message or messages, feeling it in this sector of my life. Yep, been looking to the old for the solutions and not getting much out of that. But some more fate, some more suffering, some more pain, some more looping in the same. Well, yeah, because that's not going to provide anything for you. You've got to go outside the box, and your mind doesn't get you there. We have inappropriately empowered the human mind in this culture, a logos-based culture. We've said it's everything, and it is absolutely part of co-creation, but it certainly is not everything. Not even close. To me, it's the caboose on the train. I mean, you know this for yourself. Every time your mind goes on its own little train wreck, it's like, you know what I mean? You're crashing and burning up your mental energy because, your mind's gone crazy. Okay, I got to take a little tea break, but I hope you're tracking. Give me a shout out. How's it going, everybody? You feeling me? You picking up what I'm putting down? Want to take a drink of tea? So, spherical thinking. It's about being able to see beyond a box. And that requires other senses, like intuition. So anytime you find yourself stuck in a quote unquote box and you want to get outside that box, just know, accurately said, you've got to go to other senses to get out. And so I want you to think about where you need revolution in your life right now. And I just said revolutions don't happen on the terms of the old. They happen on the terms of the new. So look to the new of your life. My counsel would be, look to the new of your life and ask it what its terms are. Turn to the new and go, what are your terms? What are they? And the answer is going to come intuitively. A cognizant knowing, a clairaudient, clairvoyant knowing, something, a sense, a gut sense a whisper. But what's also true, I would imagine, is that the terms of the new have been screaming at you this whole time. You just wanted the terms of the old to dictate your transformation at this stage, your revolution. Now, some of you asked some questions about, what's happening in the United States. We're having a terrible, horrific, extreme weather event that's really devastated the state of Texas. And I first want to just let everyone know my hearts and prayers go out to all of you. I have been in extreme weather events. In 2013, I was in Boulder when we had the Boulder flood. I was stranded without electricity and water for 2 weeks. I know what this is like to some degree. I think you guys in Texas have it far worse than I did. At least I had heat, or it wasn't so cold. But I do know what it's like to go through this sort of helpless and powerlessness. And true to the synchronicity of the Mercury retrograde, yes, we're looking at people lost electricity. That's Aquarian. The power grid itself, which to me is an Aquarian concept and construct, went out. This is about not being connected to a greater grid of interconnectedness. All true. Yet at the same time, I know that if it were me in Texas, the last thing I'd want to hear from someone is that truth right now. I just want to know that, people are looking out for my survival. So let's keep that in mind as well, especially as we talk to our loved ones in Texas or anyone that we know in Texas. Let's just make sure we do create that compassionate space of, there are deeper truths to talk about here, and they need to be addressed. If we say everything happens for a reason, then we can't just bail on that truth when it's, an extreme weather event. We have to go, what is the reason here, or reasons? And that brings me to the bigger point, and that is these sort of events have a karma, of course. I don't, however, look at karma as a punishment system. It doesn't actually work that way. It rather does work on cause and effect, but it's far more complicated and complex than most people would ever be able to handle in their psyche. It transmigrates differently over lifetimes, for example, in ways that you could never really calculate in your human-centric view. That includes in it a human-centric view of justice and right and wrong. Karma is far more dynamic than that. But I also think sometimes it is as obvious as maybe we need to do something different than what we're doing. And that's all this event is saying. So once again, what are the terms of the new? And what would that require of all of us? So absolutely these events, I'll tell you, the last week of this Mercury retrograde for me was the hardest. I was downloading these incredible new insights for these masterclasses I've been teaching in, watching my work go to a whole new frontier of insight and all sorts of things. And at the same time, this last week, got my ass handed to me just like everybody. Certainly not nearly as bad as Texas, but this is a time to really slow down. And that's what these events offer, is hold to the everything happens for a reason truth, if that feels right to you, and then go into the reasons. But remember, they have their own terms. And to see karma clearly, you have to get out of what you want it to be and the fingers you'd like to point. I could say this, if we're going to talk in terms of climate change, every single one of us had a role to play in what happened in Texas. Because I know I drive a car that burns gas, don't you? Or don't you somewhere emit carbon somehow? So let's keep it level playing field. Now, what I don't do, however, to be honest, is I never vote for someone that denies climate change. I don't do that. I vote for people that actually want to do something about it and realize it's a reality. So that said, we're all co-creating. We, as my dear colleague in Carolyn Mace would say, we are the engines of this co-creation. We are co-creating this. You want some co-creative coordinates? We're all in this together. So I know there were some questions around that. I wanted just to address that real briefly and just say, listen, this is about us coming together. And now let's bring the light side and empower awareness and whatever you can do for anyone down in these areas. And this, this is what we have to know. This is the new normal. Until we do something different, it will continue to progress, and it will compoundedly progress faster and become far worse. So my question to everybody, just like you would have any fate hitting you in your life, it always asks, any bottom always asks you, do you want to go lower? Because we can. Do you want to go lower than this? Because we absolutely can. Or would you like to use this as a moment of awakening and pivot and shift? And in the meantime, there's triage to take care of. There is literal survival challenges going on in a lot of the world right now, especially in this area of weather. But take a moment and realize you are Texas, that your power grid is shorting out, that your water pipes are bursting, that you're hitting perhaps in some way in your life some kind of bottom where it's like, I really got, I won't show you all the personal details, but this has just happened to me this last week. I had my own, my own grid shut down. So what does that mean to you? Where are your pivots here? What are the terms of the new in your life? And this is where we come together in our humanity, Aquarian, and say, well, we're all in this together. We really are one world. And the question that's going to continue to stalk us is whether or not we're going to live and act like that. Are we going to live and act like we really do interbe? We are one world. And what does that look like? So, okay. Any questions, everybody? I'm going to see what's going on here and maybe post one up. I've got to get back to the software. Yes, climate change is very hard to address during this pandemic. Yeah, let's not forget we're in a pandemic. Oh my goodness, just crazy. Okay, so if you post your questions now, I'm more likely to see them. I do have a feed of them, so I'll give you a minute to write any questions you might have. You're welcome, Carolyn. And let me just add some light on Carolyn's comment here. What about the vaccine? Okay, what about the vaccine? You got to be more specific than that. Okay, we got Melissa. Okay, cool. Folks, there's always the chance to change and pivot. There's always the light. So I have to stay out of your dreams, Louise. I'll do my best. But there's always the chance for us to transform. And I think, for example, I think climate change is the most pressing issue of our time. And I think that's going to become more and more relevant every moment. But I also think that there are graces ahead if we come together. You can't heal anything you first don't admit. So if we can't collectively come together and say, this is an issue, well, what do you think is going to happen? Any issue in your life that you can't admit and look in the face and name, you're never changing it. You can shove it in the shadow deeper, but it's going to come back and get you, and that's how that works. So, okay. I'm just reading your questions. Hey, Lucia, nice to see you again. Yes, Jonathan, I know exactly who you are. All right. Anything? Well, I'm really glad to reconnect with all of you and to be here. Let's see. I'm just going to see if any questions come up. Tiffany Kim. Oh, so Tiffany Kim wants, I'm going to see, okay, I'm going to do a little experiment here. Let's see if it works. This is Tiffany. Okay, Tiffany Kim's questioning. So you guys can read it there. What's your sense on how long we'll be dealing with this pandemic? It feels like we continue to cycle through variants until we share vaccines across the world. Yeah, I did as last year when the pandemic hit, I did a huge, I don't know, was it 16, 14-hour masterclass on my sort of symbolic breakdown of the pandemic and its karma. I think that, here's the better question, Tiffany, and I totally love your question, but I think what we should be asking is, who do we need to become to heal the pandemic? You want to know how long it's going to take for us to deal with this pandemic and when we're going to get it in the rear view mirror? Maybe the more empowered thing to say is, let's stop acting like victims. Who do we need to be, us together, to get past this pandemic? Because when we can answer that and then live that out, then we're going to get past the pandemic. So we need, who do we need to become? How do we need to treat each other? How do we, and to your point, Tiffany, how do we need to collaborate worldwide? This is a lesson. I was just watching, some, I think it was Vice News recap of the pandemic and stuff that's been happening. And just thinking to myself, if we lived as one world, and I don't mean that we can't have separate countries and everyone have their sovereignty. That is not what I mean. I mean that we acknowledge that we all interbe together and need each other. You can't live on a globe with one climate and not, how are we going to address world issues if we can't even say we're one world? So the more we can say, hey, we're one world, the more that when the next virus comes from wherever, that country can get on the phone to all the rest of the world and say, listen, we found this strain, want to let you know, we're doing our best to contain it. We're just going to stop travel from here for a while till we do. Just thought you should know. When we get to the point where that can happen, then I think we're going to be in the clear. So we can kind of treat this pandemic a few ways. One is if it's a one-off and poor us, or we can say, this is a sign of things to come across the board symbolically. If we do not begin to collaborate as one world, as sovereign nations coming together to solve world issues, then the next pandemic's around the corner, or the next who knows what. It just makes sense. But I love your question. So I think, to more specifically to your question, Tiffany, though, I think we're looking at, a year and a half before this is in the rearview mirror. Just by the nature of what it requires for us to get past kind of what's happening. So, but I thank you for your question. I love that I can put questions up. It's so cool. Okay, give me another one, you guys. Come on. Okay, anything else? Okay, we got Amy. Amy, what you got? And the questions are moving. Where's Amy? I'm going to pull you up here, Amy. All right, Amy, I'm going to give us a look. How do you add the Aquarian energy to your specific zodiac? Okay. So if you're looking at your own astrology sign, here's the thing is, and this is why I kind of usually, Amy, stay away from these sort of questions, is because my whole approach to astrology is so different and it sort of comes outside of this question. Because all of us carry all the archetypes of the zodiac, if you will, in us in some proportion. Now, what's also true is we all have a focus of development and expansion in some energies versus others. Absolutely true. Both are true. So just because someone's an Aquarius doesn't necessarily mean that only they are affected by the Mercury retrograde in Aquarius. It doesn't work that way. That's like saying, my heart isn't affected by my foot when I cut my foot. Yeah, it is. Your whole body is one system. The zodiac represents an energetic system in all of us. So what's also true, there's a lot of both and here, is that if you've got a lot of focus in Aquarius development this lifetime in whatever way or whatever's going on with your psyche, then yes, you will find it hits you in a more profound, direct way, perhaps. But everyone's got an Aquarian area of their psyche. And so therefore, everyone, when there's a Mercury retrograde, no matter what sign it's in, it's going to affect you in a certain way. So when I do my modules and my membership, I come through the main veins. Everyone on this planet's struggling right now with the need to think spherically, to perceive spherically, to move more into their intuitive senses as perhaps even a more reliable source of information than their mind. Everyone's struggling with that. Everyone is struggling with how to be within, for example, the archetype of tribalism, when Aquarius is offering a new way to do that, which is, hey, the best way you help the tribe now isn't to give up your individuality to become one of the herd, but rather to shine your genius, Aquarius, to save the tribe, to become the most fully expressed, individuated individual, where your genius is a lighthouse, such that people know where to find shore. That's how you help the tribe. In old tribalism, it was give up your individuality. You got to be like us. This is how we are. And if you don't, we abandon and orphan you, and we won't help you survive. So my point is, everyone, I don't care who you are, what your sign is, in any cycle like this, you got to contract with this cycle. And it just is a matter of what's your contract versus mine. And where do we share a same contract together? So I want you to think, Amy and everybody, great question, more this way if it helps you. More, I am every sign, but there's an area of my life where this energy is going to affect me in a certain way as part of the whole. So none of this, I'm a Libra, so I'm off the hook this time. You so are not off the hook. I could read your system and find exactly where this retrograde is going to go and how it's going to pull your Libran contract, yes, forward, and need an Aquarian revolution to support your Libran journey. But make no mistake, you still need an Aquarian revolution to do that, to go this next potential in your Libra contract. Think of it that way. Play with it. See how you feel about it. But that's really how I would approach this. And Amy, when you think that way, then the thing is, these sorts of questions start falling away, and it's more like, okay, well, what about the Aquarius? I'm a Sagittarius. Where's the Aquarian area of my life? And what does that look like in all levels, internally, externally? It might even just look like literally your tech. It could be actually you need to upgrade your tech, or just riffing around here. Or it might look like, I'm part of these social groups and I'm not feeling the vibe anymore. I feel like they're dimming me down, and I'm meant to shine my light as a lighthouse. So I've got to make some transitions and some shifts. Done. But you're still a Sagittarius. So anyway, hope that was helpful. Great question. All right. There you are, Amy. Okay. Any more cues? Rich, big spike in synchronicities lately. Thoughts? Oh. Okay, I'll take this one real quick. Yes, I have many thoughts about synchronicity. And I would have to say, I think it's quickening. And if you think about what synchronicity is, and something I'm going to cover in my membership in May, June. So doors will open in June, y'all. If you want to be part of this, make sure you get on my list. Synchronicity is a psychic law that is more about inner and outer alignments, not causality, right? I mean, Jung said this. It's not a causal. It's not like things cause each other. They just have an alignment together. So a correspondence, a resonance together, in whatever way they do. I think the more that we're in energetic territory and more that we're in our intuition, that's when we start to feel synchronicities more palpably and see them and recognize them when they're happening. Now, I do have to say that while there's synchronicity, there's also just happenstance. And it then becomes, it's a little primer for what I'm going to be teaching, an issue of, well, what is a synchronicity to you? And what's a synchronicity for you might just be happenstance for me. So both exist, which means that synchronicity is happening all the time. Yet what's also true is it's a synchronicity for some and not others. A sign that's a sign for you may not be a sign for me at all. What's the thing that determines the difference? So if you're noticing big spikes in synchronicity, Rich, it means that something in your own field, in your own potential, is animating, and that there's alignments trying to happen, and you're getting intuitive flagging about that, and that there's things kind of lining up, and you know how you feel a synchronicity too, right? It has a different energetic than happenstance. It flags you. There's an energetic tag. You just know it hits your gut and you go, wait, that's a sign. Now there's people that get into fantasy about it and they think everything's a sign and everything's a synchronicity. Not really. Everything has meaning, but not always meaning for you. So I could go on, you guys, I could just teach the course right now. Anyway, I would take a minute. And for you, Rich, This is a lot about you upgrading. Oh, here comes the reading. Here, this is about you. I hope this is okay. I'll just go light. This is about you upgrading some relationships in your life, and this is about. I feel like you're coming into a lot of new esteem, and there's a lot of new movement in your potential because of these things. You're creatively. There's some creativity activating. Ooh, yeah. This is about some new pivots and choice points ahead in about 3-4 months for you that you're getting prepared for, but you've got to continue to work on feeling confident and like you're ready for some leaps and some pivots and some shifts and some changes. So I'll leave it there, Rich. But thanks for the question. I love talking about synchronicity. Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, what else we got here? Lucia Hall. Well, I'm going to take your question because I just talked about this in my Empathic Soul 2.0 course. Some of the new downloads I've been getting, folks, around potential and dimensions have been insane. So I was just talking about, and they're Aquarian downloads, and that's why I want to take your question. What does it take to manifest something? Which is a very interesting question to investigate. It's not obviously, as you I'm sure know by now, just putting something on a vision board and thinking it's going to happen, clearly. But we are co-creators and we are manifestors, if you will, of various parts of our potential and reality. What are the coordinates of that determine, for example, speed? How fast you can, in fact, manifest something into your life. What's an Aquarian question? Because one of the things I've been teaching a lot about lately is the light. And when I say light, I don't mean light versus dark. I'm talking about an energy that is a third force, if you will. That is not light versus dark. It is creation itself. It is grace. It is the divine spark. It is light. So light, that kind of light, also has something relative to it called speed. And we manifest in two ways. One is horizontal, one is vertical. So horizontal manifestation, imagine it as the classroom you're in now. This is your classroom. You live out in this world, and you have the lay of the land of your life here where you create, right? Now, there's a speed element here, there are steam elements here, and there's light elements here. How much can you do here is dependent on all those factors. Steam, how much light your system can handle, your co-creative awareness, whether you're just acting out archetypal adaptations from childhood that you developed to survive your family and things you went through as a kid, whether you're actually consciously intending and choosing things. There's a lot that goes on in a dimension. But for anyone to go to a new dimension of co-creation in which there can be faster manifestation or faster speed, you have to go through a dark night, which is a contracting process to the vertical column of your power. And then you level up. And then on the new level of your power, which is also connected to esteem and light, you go back out horizontal. I just had a freaking massive download about this in my Empathic Soul 2.0 course, which has become, at the midpoint of teaching this course, what the rest of the course will be about. But when you're talking about Aquarian energy, let me say it this way. How fast do you think a codependent can manifest reality, intend, and manifest a goal? If you're someone who's full-blown in addiction or codependency, how fast do you think you can take a dream, a vision, an idea, and put it out there and make it happen? Well, the truth is you probably can't at all. Because the only route of creation your system primarily has is through that pattern. Now, what's it going to take to get out of that pattern? To get to a place where that's not the door of creation for your life anymore. It's going to take a dark night. It's going to take you having to de-identify with that pattern. Part one, that's what dark nights are about. It's about losing identity, patterns that have become identity. Then it's about getting to a mystical vertical place of power. That's coming to the vertical column of your power. And then it's about going up to a new group of archetypes a new power system, a steam system, a new creation system, and then going horizontal with that again. And this is how creation works in the real way. Now, I always tell people, you know, when you make a vision board, I want you to think about something. I want you to think about this. Everything on that board, who would you have to be? What power would you have to have? What patterns would you have to manifest any of that? Because if you were working with a vision board as a magician, you would be very mindful of everything you put on that board is going to activate a dark night in you. It's going to bring you to task with everything in your self-sabotage that would not allow that dream to happen. So you put a loving relationship on your vision board. Okay, great. Are you going to deal with your unrequited lover, your codependent, your blood donor, all the things that sabotage love in your life? Are you ready to actually meet, greet, and hug those dragons? And not only that, find a new expression of your power, your vulnerability, your lover archetype. So I could just go on with that question. But manifestation happens faster, near as I can tell, and there's lots of variables here. I'm being very broad strokish, based on your vertical alignments to yourself and your mystical system. Yeah, love it. Love the question. All right. Right, you guys, where are we? How much time do we? I got some more time. You guys want to hang out some more? So anyway, by the way, I want to let you all know, because I've been, I'll just tell you now. Next week, I'm going to come back. Join me next Friday, and I'll share with you a little clip from my Empathic Soul 2.0 masterclass. I am reopening Empathic Soul 1.0, and here's why, which you got to take first, because I'm not offering that class for 2 years after this. I'm going to go in a different direction for a while. And I want to give you all who maybe wanted to get in there one more chance to get into 1.0. And then you have to take 1.0 to get into 2.0. I will reoffer 2.0 again at the same time. You can get both at the same time if you want. But I also, just so you're aware, I will reoffer that in December. But this is telling you all, if you can get into those courses, definitely give it a thought. It's the same thing I just talking about, but on crack. Okay, what else we got? Let me see what other questions. Ganz klein Heidelein. Guten Abend. Okay, was noch? Ooh, I'm taking this one. This is a good one. Janine, bringing the thunder. That's what I'm talking about. Do we always have to have a dark night to move something to something new, or can we move when we spend time doing shadow work? Let me just take it from a few angles. Do we always have to have a dark night? No, we don't. We don't at all. But do we often seem to have a dark night? Yeah. And I'm speaking from experience in my own life personally, and also as someone who did thousands of intuitive readings for almost 2 decades. So let's go into this a little bit. You guys want to go into this little journey of dark night chat? And I really love this question for so many reasons. Let me get repositioned here. If you could be someone that had this incredibly and I'm going to take the question down just so that you can see me more, because it should be all about me. Just kidding. Or am I? If you could be somebody who had a nourishing relationship with the unknown. I'm going to riff around here and go to some extremes to ping around. I would say then maybe perhaps you wouldn't need a dark night at all, ever. If you could be someone that could be like, you know what, I just welcome whatever wants to happen next. If that means I have to leave certain relationships, leave a certain career path, leave a certain location where I live. If you could be someone that could be so in flow, so neutralized in your survival fear, that whatever new knocked on your door, you'd let in. I'm not so sure you would need that dark of a night, if one at all. Now, having said that, let's get to reality. Let's get to the real natural wiring of our human system and our subconscious mind, our nervous system, our family systems, our cultural social systems, and their patterns that are in us and our own, let's say inner psychological technology. Now, when we add all that in the mix, now I'm going to ask, well, do you think you need a dark night? Yeah. Because one, a lot of us have made patterns identity. Two, most of us have a horrific relationship with the unknown. Three, we can't do the unknown. We like to think we can. We like to talk magically about it, but the truth is, as soon as it knocks on the door, we're sabotaging ourselves so we don't even have to deal with answering the door, let alone letting it in. So when it comes to, does it always take a dark night? Do we always need a dark night? Could we do it without a dark night? Yeah. A lot of the thrust of my work is to help people get to the point where, coming back to the Mercury Retrograde, what if you could work more in a flow with Mercury retrogrades? And that's what I offer. I offer a technical way to go into a Mercury retrograde that lets you work with what's trying to happen in the unknown of you consciously so that you don't need the 2x4. Could you be so clear with yourself, be honest, that if your potential said to you, listen, I need you to leave this marriage next year because you need to go on in a different path. This person can't accommodate the voltage of that path, and you need to re-relate to them in a way so that you can move on to your potential. Could you do that? Could you surrender and go, yeah, okay, done? Or I need you to go back to school, or I need you to move over here and start a business, or I need, go down the line. What could you really do if your potential came knocking and said, look, I know you love where you live, but it's not where your calling is next. So I'm gonna need you to sell your house. I'm gonna need you to liquidate and fill in the blanks. Move to France. Most of our dark nights are dark because, like I said, we've made our survival adaptations identity. A codependent has a certain identity in place around that pattern. So does a perfectionist. Think of any of your archetypal patterns or patterns and ask, have I made this my identity? I'll give you one that most people make identity, and that's the victim. And the way that you know if it's identity is you perceive through it, you see yourself through it, you choose through it, you act through it. And you could say, oh, Robert, the victim is so not my identity. I've moved on. And then something could break down that you just bought, and I'd watch you go into victim mode with customer service and rage about it. It's brand new. This shouldn't have happened. And then I'd look at you and go, oh, so the victim isn't your identity, huh? Well, I just saw a lot of victim entitlement in that customer service experience. So come again? And we're all in this orb of it, right? We all it's sort of at this stage, the natural way we work within the human psyche. The more that you can flow and just, trust grace, trust your potential, trust destiny, well, the less I think the dark nights get as dark. Now, I'm a realist, I'm a pragmatist, and I'm going to tell you, are you going to get to a place of enlightenment where you're opted out of every dark night? I highly doubt it. I don't know of anyone personally that lives there. I think we can absolutely mitigate the struggle of the dark nights like this. And that's what I often try to teach people to do. I try to guide you through, hey, this is, because I like to approach this as a technician. It's how I work as an intuitive. I'm a technician. I want to know what your system's doing. I want to know the wiring. I want to know the archetypal dynamics and patterns. And then I can say, okay, this is the technical lay of the land. And you know what's beautiful about being technical? It absolutely neutralizes shame. Because you see it as a system, not as a statement of worth. There's one right. We take low esteem and make it identity. When you say I'm worthless, you've just labeled yourself something. Versus I suffer from low esteem. That's talking about a condition or a pattern or a sense about you. So, such a great question. I want to bring it back up and then finish it out here. Do you always have to have a dark night to move to something new? No. But it's going to be about, hey, how willing can you, how welcoming are you to the new? What's your relationship like with the unknown? For all the talk that, the magic happens outside of the comfort zone, most of us do everything we can to stay out of that comfort zone, or to stay in the comfort zone, rather. We don't want to go out beyond that. And what's also true is this: part of us does want to go outside of that comfort zone. That's your soul. That's your potential. And another part doesn't. And it can take people decades to get to a place where they don't cancel each other out and they actually move on. But let me just say this too, to cap this off. Any of that struggle, any dark night struggle, is truly never about your value. You're always worthy. To get to the new isn't about worthiness. It's about readiness. It's about commitment. It's about willingness and many other things, but it's never about worthiness. I love your question. And it's very Mercury retrograde, because every Mercury retrograde is, in a sense, like a little mini MINI dark night. It's like this moment where we're given an opportunity to see where we're being called to the new, but also what's in the way, what has to be disintegrated, disorganized, thrown into chaos for something new to reorganize and move us forward. So, speaking of which, the integration phase ahead. Now, you may look back at the last 6 weeks of your life and go, thank you so much, Jeannie. And that's probably my favorite question of this particular session. I love that question. So thank you for that. You may look back at your life this last 6 weeks and start to get, through some of the markers I'm giving you, some metrics, some insights about where you've been and what your Mercury retrograde messages might be. And you might now be going, well, what now, Hato? And my counsel would be, a lot of times the integration phase, which is the next, so the integration phase goes till March 12th. And what's ahead here is any insights or awareness you have gotten from whatever dark nights you've just had, or just dark experiences or fated interventions or challenges, or Mercury retrograde kind of messages, whatever those are, now you've got to integrate and take back to and live out in the streets of your life. It's not awareness is never enough. You have to take awareness and translate that into actual shift, change, action, new choices, new perceptions, new habits. So that's what the next few weeks become about. Is you can get a blast of Aquarian lightning awareness. Many of you maybe have. And now it's about, all right, I got to now go take that to my life. And let's see what wires in my life can actually handle this kind of new electricity that I just downloaded, which can't. And so sometimes the integration phase for people when it comes to a Mercury retrograde is harder than the rest of the whole phase itself. Because now it's like, okay, I had to go through the dark night and hug a dragon. And now I got to go back out to the world and tell them, guess what? I know you thought I was flat, but I just figured out through this process that I'm actually round. So we got to redraw the maps of our relationship, of me in our relationship. And, that's where we also meet resistance. So that might be helpful, though, just to realize that the next few weeks could be harder. And if you can frame it from the point of view if it's helpful for you, that it's harder because now you've actually got to implement shifting things in your life. And we exist in relationships with people. And not only relationships with people, but groups. We've got a role. We play roles. And most of the time, not always, but most of the time when we come back to those we play roles to and we say, look, just realize I'm done with that role. And if you've been a blood donor, if you've been a rescuer, if you've been anything to someone else where they've benefited by the role you used to play or are currently playing, and you tell them you want to change roles, they're usually not happy about that because now they might have to grow up. They might have to actually feel their own feelings for themselves. You're not feeling them for them anymore. They might have to take care of their own finances. Fill in the blank. But you guys are kicking it. And see, I got you warmed up with some cues. I got it going. I'll take a couple more. See what else you got. Anyone else? Any questions? What is a blood donor? Chris, okay. A blood donor is somebody that, it's an archetype. So first of all, I don't mean literally giving blood. That's a good thing to do, actually. But thank you for the clarification. A blood donor is somebody who is a codependent. You give up your life force. And usually, if you're a blood donor, you got to have someone in your life who's a vampire. So it's one of those archetypes in people that pairs up with another and someone else. So vampires, now you have to get a little bit more symbolic and figure, and riff around a bit, because if you're a blood donor, for example, you could be somebody who constantly is bailing people out financially. And it's like a vampire comes and, sticks their fangs in your neck. And here's what you got to know about that sort of pattern in you. If you're a blood donor / codependent / let's throw in some other things, synonyms for you to get. If you're a hyper giver, always giving your life force, always giving money, always giving your time, always giving. Well, you're probably paired up with a taker. You're paired up with a vampire. It's an esteem system issue, though, when it comes down to shifting, because there is a sense of, if I'm needed, then I know I'm enough to someone. And the only way I can be enough to someone is if I give. And so it creates this draining dynamic where eventually you'll hit a really bad bottom. You'll get wiped out financially. And by the way, if you're a true blood donor, you don't have boundaries. You invite vampires in and you don't even realize what you're doing, because it's your esteem system that's driving it. And that's why, we can become aware that we're codependent. We can become aware we're a hyper overgiver. We can become aware of these things and then watch ourselves keep doing it and be like, what is wrong with me? Why am I still doing this? And until you understand how your esteem system works, you'll never answer that question. Because then you realize, oh, I do it because that's how I know I'm enough to them. And let's add in the child archetype. And if I don't want them to abandon me, I got to keep doing this because then they need me. And then I know they're not going to go anywhere because they need me. They need me to bail them out. They need me to rescue them. They need me to give them my blood. It's not sustainable. None of these hyper giver taker, polarity patterns are sustainable. Eventually you crash one way or the other. You would drain out of your blood, and then you can't circulate nourishment to your own life. Your systems give out, whether those are financial, psychological, emotional. So I hope that helps. Great question. I don't mean literal. Literal blood donation is wonderful. So I just wanted to make sure everyone's clear on that. Okay. Boundaries are a must. Yes. Anything else, y'all? Hey, Julie M. New to your work, but it's strong resonance. Okay, I'll put this up there just for anyone who's maybe just catching me on some stream somehow, somewhere. New to your work, but feel strong resonance as you're teaching. What's the best place to start? I'm launching a new podcast, so that would be a great place to start, coming up here in about a month. And I'll be live streaming those podcasts through Facebook and YouTube while I produce them. And then they'll be post-produced, and then released in batches of 8 to both iTunes and everywhere that you can find podcasts. Also, just go to my website. I'd watch a lot of other videos. I have videos on YouTube. I think it's an easier place to access a lot of my older stuff. And that's where I'd point you. Visit my website, see what's going on. But yeah, I'm super excited about the podcast coming up. Hi, Julie. Nice to meet you. All right. What else we got here? Nargis, what's going on? I'm seeing some of my membership people in here. Okay, let's see. So I'll take Kelly. Kelly, I love that I can do this with your questions. Do you guys not love my new software? I'm in love with my new software. I'm so excited about this podcast. Okay. How do we know where to shine the light? Sometimes I feel like the lawyer you mentioned last week. Oh, so I talked about, this is from someone from my membership, but creating financial security is also part of the human experience, so we're secure enough to do the light work. So in my membership, I talked about a reading I did on somebody years and years ago who had become a lawyer just to prove her father wrong, who was this misogynist and didn't feel like women could become lawyers, and certainly not her. So she became one. But the reality was she never really wanted to be one. She didn't have the archetypes for it. She didn't have the drivers for it. It wasn't really native to her soul to be a lawyer, or her destiny, if you will, either. So she finally ends up, realizing that she had, become this lawyer, and in the end was miserable. You have to have some genuine, authentic sense of connection to what you do, or eventually it can turn in on you. If you just do something just for money, and I think to Kelly's question here, Kellyanne, then eventually that's going to come up and crash you down. But what Kellyanne, I think you're asking is, well, okay, I get where that's true, but what about the need to make money? Yeah. And that's to say too, that sometimes the ways that we make money are not necessarily for how we feel the fullest expression of our soul. We all live in this survival world, right? Where we have to have resources to survive, no matter what we do. And what's also true is, for some of us, the way we do that, it aligns to our actual, let's say, career or job. And for some of us, it doesn't, in terms of what our feelings of potential are, our soul passions are. And I'll tell you, someone who is somebody who, what I do is also how I resource myself for a living. Both are connected. It's not always the path you think it is. And we can always say the grass is greener. We can glamorize various paths, but I think there's something to be said about just having a day job and then doing your passion, in a way that doesn't ask you to recruit financial resources anyway to keep doing it. I think, there's no right or wrong here. It's just a matter of what's true for you. Now, in terms of where do you shine your light? I mean, you might, if you have a sense of drive where you want what you want to do, you want it to resource you, then get on it. But you do have to keep in mind, I'm not a fan of starving artists, starving healers, starving teachers. And that's not to fault anybody, because our culture sets all of our teachers, artists, and healers up to starve. But I've been someone that said, look, we got to give the soul currency. Your gifts, your skills, they matter. And they, I think, should be also given expression financially in terms of their value. I couldn't employ the employees that helped me. I couldn't, purchase the tech I use to even stream to you right now. I couldn't afford, the software I'm using if I didn't get resourced. So, I think it's, I think it's something you got to figure out for yourself, in terms of like, if you're in a path where you're meant to align to shining your light in a way that's also about financially resourcing yourself, or if it just is something that's better served as a hobby. But there's no right or wrong. I think it's a matter of, you finding your own way. I'm a big fan of the hyphenation between career and calling, where you bring them together as one thing, one force in yourself. But that's not always something that can work for people. And I think it's just a matter of, if you're, I will say this, if you're meant to be resourced by your calling career, then you'll figure it out. But it's hard. Trust me, someone who's been down the journey and the road, it's hard. I'm not sure I quite answered that, but okay. Anyone else? And I'll wrap it up here in about a few minutes here. Thank you for joining. Louisa, I see you. Hello. Salt water. Ooh, I'm gonna take this one. You're asking it in such an interesting way. All right, salt water from YouTube. How do you navigate which contracts are worth shadow dancing with? So shadow dancing means that you engage people, your shadows engage, and you dance together. Kind of sums it up. I think you can kind of get a vibe for it. But you do have to discern who's worth, going to the mat with, right? And And I don't know if worth is quite the right way to say it per se, but I'll go with it for now. The way that I approach this is I look at like anything in life where maybe you're asked to rebel, you're asked to stand up for something, you're asked to confront someone, you're asked to fill in the blank. You have a decision to make. Do I engage or not? That's kind of where we are. Saltwater, right? Like, do I engage or not? How do you know whether I should engage? One metric amongst many that I'll offer, it's the simplest one, is this. If you didn't engage, would you lose power? If you didn't engage, would you feel like a coward? Which is also oftentimes what happens when we lose power. If you didn't engage, would you lose, and this is the key one, self-connection. So I'm gay. There's times when I've been called, faggot and stuff by people. And I've had to ask myself every time that's ever happened to me, do I engage or walk away? And 9 times out of 10, I engage, but I'm a bigger guy. I have a black belt in martial arts. I also know the parameters of my safety and what I can do. So that informs a lot of my decision. But moreover, it's a soul thing. It's, if I don't say something or stand up in the situation or confront someone, will I feel like a coward? Now, I'd be the first one to tell you, if I was in a redneck bar and, somewhere in the South and someone started saying that word, I'm not going to get up and probably stand up. I'm going to get out of the bar. And I'm not going to lose power for that. That's just a shrewd survival choice. And might I add, my standing up to these people isn't going to change them at all. So it's a soul response to me, though. And I've shocked myself sometimes in engagement that I thought I would walk away from, but I didn't. And there's times, just like any of us, I've engaged where in hindsight, I'm like, I should have just walked away. So some of it's, crash and burn lessons to learn, and you kind of get it as you go. But now I would intuitively tell you, I would take a moment and feel yourself and go, if I don't say something, am I going to lose power? Am I going to feel like a coward? And am I going to disconnect from myself? You can turn away and walk away from someone that's giving you an invitation to shadow dance and not lose power at all, not feel like a coward at all. You got to read it though intuitively. And I would always gauge your personal safety as well. I mean, let's keep it real. But, there's a way. I mean, I did a whole course on this, shadow dancing with archetypes, it's called. And, there's a way to go with this, but I would go with just that gut instinct. Do I self-disconnect if I don't say something? And you might be shaken while you say something, but if you do get that intuitive prompt, say something, and then you say something, even in your shakiness, you won't self-disconnect. And the other person, even if you're shaky, will feel you're taking a stand of power. So anyway, I would offer that little tidbit if it's helpful. I hope so. Okay. Any other questions, y'all? Okay, well, I think I'm going to shut it down. It's nice to see you all for Friday Night Live, Social Live. It's been a while. And I'll see you next week. Next Friday, I'm going to share a little piece of 2.0 with you. So we're reopening the doors to 1.0 and 2.0 on Empathic Soul and Love Rebel courses on my website. If you don't know what those are, go look up the descriptions. You can still read those. And they'll be open for 2 weeks. And then 1.0 closes for 2 years. So if you want to get into that class, last call for a little while. All right, everybody. Lots of love to you. I hope you have a great Mercury Retrograde integration phase. Love yourself no matter what. And just keep taking care of yourself. And all my love to everyone in Texas. I am just sending you from the light grids that I can connect to. Lots of love, lots of grace. And I really pray for you and for your whole state to use this as a chance to pivot and shift in whatever way you're being called to. I really mean that. So I hope you guys get power back. let's get on the ground level. I hope you get your power and heat back. I know there's so much damage down there. So everyone, I would ask you to, send a prayer or some good vibes, or, whatever you can in terms of resources by donating to some of the causes out there. Brene Brown just mentioned one that I'm going to check out and donate to as well. But lots of love to everybody. I'll see you soon. And don't forget, podcast coming up. I'll be doing social lives here If you want to know the schedule for that so you can make it or watch it on demand, get on my newsletter on ohata.com. All right. I'll see you guys in a week. Namaste.